What's up, guys? Welcome back to another video from stormy Playa del Carmen. Rope Monster coming at you here with a big time video, renting versus buying in Playa del Carmen. I know a lot of you have been waiting for this one. I'm going to share with you 6 big reasons why I'm renting in 2025 versus buying in Playa del Carmen. I'm also going to share at the end of the video a few valid arguments for buying versus renting in Playa, just to play the other side of the coin. If you appreciate my efforts and the value in this video, just smash the like button for me, subscribe if you haven't already. Let's dig in, guys. So getting right into it, reason number 1, these are in no particular order. These are all of equal importance in my humble opinion. Market uncertainty and drawing the comparison to the Tulum market. I'll share some data up on the screen of what's going on in Tulum, but Tulum is in a severe correction right now. So we've got luxury properties down 15 to 25% from their 2023-24 peaks. Condos and studios down 20 to 30%. Peripheral land, steep corrections of up to 40%, guys. So a lot of this is due to oversupply. And I'm starting to see the same pattern in Playa del Carmen, right? So if the returns have been so strong over the last 3 to 5 years, which they have been, the thought is, well, let's build more and let's build more and let's build more and they will sell. Well, I think Playa is being overbuilt right now. Playa is basically empty at this time. I spoke with a business owner here, a local, and he said, Playa está vacío, it's empty. We barely have enough people to play volleyball right now. So the problem is that people think, well, we'll buy a condo and then we'll rent it out the 6 months when we're not there. And the question I have to pose is, to whom will you be renting that condo if there's no one here? There's a lot of buildings sitting empty right now. And so market uncertainty is a big reason why I'm not buying right now. There's less transparent valuations. It's really hard to tell what something's worth if it's going to be vacant. 30-40%, you really have to understand what the occupancy rates are going to be. And so I really think the oversupply is the catalyst to drive prices potentially down or stagnate the growth and have things kind of flatten off. Let me know in the comments, guys, what you think, if you're buying, if you're renting, and what your thought process is there. I think there's some valid arguments to be made for both. That's number 1, guys. With that out of the way, let's move on to number 2 on the list. So the second thing I wanted to cover is a very hot topic, and that's Sargasm. The Mexican Navy is tasked with managing the Sargasm issue, which has a direct impact on tourism. But I want to dig a little bit deeper, and I'm going to share a story with you, something that happened 2 nights ago. The Sargasm issue leads to a drop-off in tourism, which leads to a drop-off in revenue, especially for bar owners, business owners on Fifth Avenue, which leads to unrest, it leads to lower wages, it leads to delinquency. I actually saw a fight break out between 2 business owners on Fifth Avenue. They were blaming each other, talking about the music being too loud at one and drowning out the music at the other, essentially blaming each other for something that I think has more to do with a broad spectrum drop-off in tourism during low season. So the Sargasm leads to less tourism, lower wages, less business, and then eventually crime, unrest, and instability. So there's a trickle-down effect. And you're not just seeing this amongst business owners, but everybody. People have less money to spend, robberies go up, petty theft goes up, and you can even see corruption from the local PD. That's becoming less and less frequent. I think Playa is doing a really good job of managing that situation, but come July, come August, you start seeing that. And so it's beyond the scope of this video to talk about that in depth, but it does happen. And I think a lot of it comes back to managing the Sargasm and keeping the beaches in a state where they're actually worth spending your hard-earned cash to visit. So number 2, guys, Sargasm, tourism, drop-off, delinquency, instability. That's something I want to see progress on before I put my hard-earned cash into a property here in Playa del Carmen, and for good reason. Let me know what you think about that situation. I'm all ears. I just want to see some level of progress. I think there could be better net systems put up. I think they're doing a better job in Puerto Morelos than they are in Playa. And I want to see something happen. So guys, number 3, I want to talk about maintenance and management risks. Properties, first of all, when you're in a saltwater, humid environment, buildings tend to deteriorate at a rapid rate. You see foundation issues, you'll see all sorts of structural damage over very short periods of time. The building I used to live in is only 8 years old, and if I had to guess, I would have thought it was closer to 20 years old based on the problems that I was seeing. The other thing, guys, is managing a property when you're not here. It's very difficult, from what I've heard from property owners and from what I've seen, to find a legitimate property manager. And we'll talk more about property managers later in the video regarding returns on your investment. But I think the maintenance and management risks are at the top of my list of why I have not yet bought in Playa del Carmen. I think there's a lot of risk there, not to mention hurricanes, tropical cyclones, but just overall degradation. And also one thing we saw in Tulum recently was the building was happening so fast that the quality of the building materials, the attention to detail, the actual structural integrity was going down. We want to see that going up. I want to see hurricane-proof windows. I want to see a building that can withstand Category 4 hurricanes before I invest. I think there's very little legal protection in Mexico, especially for expats, for foreigners. And so there's a lot of risk there. If you come back after going home for low season and your building's literally gone or severely damaged, there's not much a good property manager can do about that. So it's hard enough to find a good property manager, but there's still all this risk with structural damage to the buildings. And I just don't think the integrity of the new construction is good enough. I've gone and watched with my own eyes these new construction projects, and I'm not an expert on this. I'm not a construction guy. I'm not a home builder. But I do think that there's some questionable practices going on as far as the structural integrity. So keep that in mind. That's definitely on my mind when considering buying versus renting. So another thing that just comes down to for me is flexibility. As I mentioned earlier in the video, people think they're going to buy and then they can travel 6 months out of the year and just rent out their place stress-free and walk away from it for 6 months and come back and they'll have a positive return on their investment. I personally think that for myself, if I want to travel 3 months out of the year or 6 months out of the year, it's a lot easier to just finish out my lease in May or June and simply pack up my things and walk away. You can store a few things with friends who are here full time. You can be a minimalist like me and just own less stuff. Then you can travel carefree. So for me, I like to take trips. What if I want to go to Huatulco or a different part of Mexico for 3 months? Or I want to go see Europe or Southeast Asia for 3 or 4 months. I can do that and I have the flexibility to do so because I'm renting. So that's a big one for me, is just being able to leave during low season if I so choose. If there's a Category 4 hurricane coming, I can get on a plane, go somewhere else, enjoy life for a while, assess the damage in Playa and see if it's worth coming back right away. But another thing is just within Playa, I want the flexibility. I mentioned some delinquency, and this fight that happened was actually in the Zazil-Ha neighborhood. What if things deteriorate in one neighborhood but not in another? What if I want to move from Zazil to Zazil-Ha, which is a more established, polished neighborhood here in Playa? I've done a video on that neighborhood. I'll link it in the description below. If I want to move to Zazil-Ha, or I want to move to the other side of the highway because I want more amenities and a nicer place for my money, I can do so at the end of my lease, or I can simply walk away from this apartment, for example, and I'm only out the deposit, which is about $900 US. Compare that with trying to walk away and sell a property before you can get out and do what you want to do. So flexibility, guys, is a huge one. I had to go over that. That's one for me. I like to have my freedom, and the optionality to come and go is huge for me. So flexibility, guys. Renting wins in that department for sure. So I'm going to get into some actual numbers on the returns that you can expect in the next section. I want to cover one more thing first though. I want to talk about income and resale risk. So Airbnb yields are dropping. Short-term rentals are falling off a little bit. There's quite a bit of supply. So there's some serious income risk. If you think you're going to cover 3 or 4% or 5% or 8% returns or even 10%, which has been the norm on short-term rentals, you might be in for a tough surprise. And so also selling can be a long process, especially during low season. And then also you can have 5 to 8% commissions involved with selling. So all of a sudden you're eating into your returns in a big way. And I also think there's some tax implications as well. And so things can get pretty sticky. You'll have to have the proper legal team, which costs a little bit of this, if you want to lawyer up and be well represented and protected when selling your property. So there's that. And with that out of the way, let's get into probably what my number one reason is for renting versus buying here in Playa del Carmen in 2025. Guys, remember, smash the like button for me. Subscribe if you haven't already. It helps the channel grow and it means the world to me. Thank you all, guys. So probably number one for me on this list has to be that I can get better returns on what I know, and that's stocks and investing in other companies. To me, there's less risk involved because it's in my circle of competence. Long-term net yields right now in Playa del Carmen are probably 3 to 4%. Short-term, maybe 10 to 12%, and then you can maybe expect 8% annualized growth going forward at best. Some of you might be saying, well, the returns have been way better than that over the last 3 to 5 years. Keep in mind with anything, any investment, past performance is not indicative of future returns. You can have something go off and return 20% annualized for 5 years in a row and then flatline for the next 5 years. And that's true with real estate, it's true with stocks. And so I think a lot of these returns though come back to proper property management and representation. So if you do have a top-notch property manager, it's probably going to cost you a little bit of money, but it might juice up your returns a little bit higher than those numbers mentioned. For me personally, recently I invested in a few different stocks. One of them was Nike. The whole world hated Nike. I was selling cash secured puts on it, and I was buying the shares as low as $53 on up to $62 a share. Recently it shot back up into the 70s. I'm already sitting on 20% returns, guys. This is not me bragging, but this is me saying that my prowess, my area of knowledge is in stocks, and I'm getting 20% on a company that also pays a dividend. So I'm getting that 3%-ish yield already, which would be your net gain in rentals here long term. But I'm also getting that capital appreciation with what I perceive as less risk. Nike has a really strong balance sheet. They have more cash than they have debt. It's impossible for them to go bankrupt. Yes, there's some negative news about tariffs and things like that. Another stock that I bought over the course of last year was Starbucks, and I was paying $72 to $75 a share. I'm up 25% on that. Huntington Ingalls, which is an aerospace defense company, I'm up 25% on that since last November. So my biggest thing is, look, if I can get 25% or 20% plus the dividend, which pays my bills, I have no reason to take the risk on real estate in a foreign country, in a place where hurricanes tend to hit every year, in a place where you can't find good property management. Those are very valid reasons for not buying for me. Some of you might be saying, well, I only get 11% or I only get 8% annualized in the stock market and I do better on real estate. If that's you, then we're going to talk about some of the arguments for buying, because for some people it does make sense. The purpose of this video is not to discourage people from buying. I think there's some seriously valid reasons for buying real estate here. let's get into those. Thank you guys for sticking around to this point of the video. I truly appreciate it. So arguments for buying is that real estate is in your circle of competence. You've either been in real estate in a different market, you know how to manage properties, you already have property management in place potentially. You've got all the bases covered before you even purchase the property, okay? Real estate is something that you have a background in, you have friends who are realtors, you have a team in place already. If that's you, then buying might actually make a lot of sense. The other argument I could make is that if you underpay relative to the intrinsic value of the property, which is exactly what I try to do with stocks. I just find it easier to value stocks than I do real estate. But if you're talented at figuring out about what the intrinsic value is of a property, and then you can be patient and during a correction underpay relative to the intrinsic value, then you might be really well off and you might get those outsized returns that we all look for in real estate and investing in general. The other thing is that if you're in it long term, say it's your final place, say you're 65, you're retiring, you're selling your property in Canada or the US, it might make a ton of sense because you're not so worried about the returns. This is your forever home. You're gonna live here for the rest of your life. And you just say, hey, you know what? We want to be in Playa. We don't want to be at the mercy of rental increases year to year. So you're in it for the long term. You buy the property, you forget about the overall returns and just enjoy life. And a lot of subscribers who I've met in person, that is their situation. So if that's your situation, buy a property by all means. Just make sure you do your due diligence. Because some people are buying pre-construction, and there's a lot of risk with that. Will they finish the property? Will the integrity of the building degrade over time if the funds don't keep coming in? Those are all questions you have to ask yourselves. And then just having realistic expectations. If you know you want to buy, just go into it flexible and say, hey, look, there's going to be some unexpected challenges, and we'll deal with them as they come. If you go into it with that mindset, buying a property in Playa del Carmen might be for you. And guys, I am actually going to be getting more into the real estate side of things here in Playa del Carmen. I will be partnering up with a few agencies and showing some actual properties. So in no way is it in my best interest to discourage people from buying, but I truly wanted to share with you all as transparently as possible why I'm personally renting and not buying. So there you have it, guys. 6 reasons why I'm renting versus buying, and a few very valid arguments for buying property here in Playa del Carmen. If you enjoyed the video, please do subscribe for more content like this. Let me know in the comments what you thought about this style of video. See you all in the next one. Rope Monster, out. Some bonus material, guys. As always, I've got to bring you the bonus material or else it wouldn't be a Rope Monster video. So I went for a bike ride last night. I couldn't sleep. I wanted some agua mineral and all I had was tea and normal water. I just wanted something bubbly. So I got on my bike and I went for a ride down 5th Avenue, and this was close to 1 in the morning. And I rode down to the 7-Eleven on 5th Avenue. What I noticed was more people than normal out very late, sleeping on benches, and especially more people out drinking caguamas, the big beers. Some pretty rough looking people just out on 5th Avenue drinking at 1 a.m. And so it actually had a weird vibe. It didn't feel the same as during high season. So this place does change during low season. I have elected to stay here during low season. I think there's some benefits to it. It's very peaceful, it's quiet. They're not sold out of coffee at Chedraui. There's cash in the ATMs. Life is easier in a lot of ways during low season. But I did notice quite a bit of just drinking and debauchery on 5th Avenue that wasn't tourist related. These people didn't look like they were having fun. It looked more like they were drinking out of sorrow and misery. So that is kind of a sour note to end the video on. But I have to keep it real here on the channel as always, and I think that's why you guys tune in and watch these videos. is that I'm always going to be transparent and honest. And I do think this trickle-down effect with the Sargasm, the tourism dropping off, it really does lead to higher rates of delinquency and just overall crime. And so keep all those things in mind, renting versus buying. If you want part 2 to this video, I'd be happy to do it. I think in part 2, I would actually be going and talking with expats and asking them why they've rented or bought. I was just having coffee with Zach and Gabriella, a couple really good friends of mine. And they were saying that they're renting, they're here long term, they're here year round, but they're saying that they're renting because of kind of the barriers to entry. It's a lot more upfront cash. You'll need a down payment. And then also they mentioned the optionality. They're like, hey, we've been here for a few years. What if we want to leave in 4 months? Try a different place. They can both work remotely. So, and then the last thing they mentioned was the management of the property. They did not want the headache. So these 6 points that I covered that are the main reasons why I rent versus buy seem to be common amongst other folks who are renting versus buying. There you have it, guys. Thanks again for stopping in. I got some volleyball to go play. See you later on. All right, my friends, I had to end this video with a laugh. So I just came across this and it says macro and infrastructure long-term hope. And we're talking about the Tulum real estate market. I'm already in volleyball mode, but I'm taking my time to turn over this one last stone for you all so you don't have to. Hope you appreciate my efforts, because now I'll have to add this to the video and re-export it, but I think it's worth it, guys. Listen to this. So the long-term hope for the Tulum housing market is infrastructure projects. The new airport and the Maya train could stimulate demand, though their impact isn't immediate. Guys, I have to strongly disagree. The Tulum airport is essentially worthless. It's in the middle of nowhere. It's inconvenient. Maybe long term, yeah, maybe it will somehow be more conveniently located in the future. I don't know. The flights are more expensive in and out. It's just ridiculous. The train Maya, I took the train Maya to Valladolid. It's the most dysfunctional, expensive project I've ever seen. We're talking a huge capital expenditure, and they don't even have a website that works. You can't even, that's why I had to make the video. You can't even find details on the schedules, the pricing. There's no accurate information. If I was going to spend $100 and something million or more on a project, I would probably start by creating a good website. So I just don't see those as catalysts for the Tulum real estate market. Now I'm going to go play some volleyball. With that being said, I hope you guys got a good laugh out of that. I know I did. See you guys in the next one.